seem to be living in a world where trust in science is at an all-time low, where opinion is taken as fact, where misinformation, disinformation is the norm. The compounding crises from climate change and how that's impacting health, our food chains, the way we live, to seismic shifts in geopolitics and technology, we have to work together to find solutions for these complex challenges that we face.
I think the most important part that we need to do, and it's often forgotten, is the work prior to the research, and that is the development of relationships within these communities. We can't just all of a sudden have an idea and go, hey, well, I need to include community, and then go to them with the idea and be like, this is what we're doing. I just need someone to be involved in it. You need to have the prior relationship so there's trust. And that's something that we're not taught in research. We're not taught about developing trusting, meaningful relationships that could then generate into research. But I find those researchers who, I suppose do the grassroots efforts, are involved in the the volunteer organisations who, may be part of the community themselves, often have those relationships that develop into really beautiful research that then can easily be translated back within the community because the community has had some voice in it.
These people in the communities, these people, citizens, patients, people with disability, those who are in the communities are those who have lived experiences, and lived experiences is actually what shapes the evidence practice in real world. So I think that building trust is very important to share knowledge, or building relationships is very important to share knowledge.
Building trustworthy evidence requires building back trust of communities and people who are and will continue to be disproportionately impacted unless we act now.
There's also the voices of the many underserved communities around the world. They're missing not only in HTA but in evidence generation. And if we're serious about improving health outcomes, it's vital that we connect with them. These communities have often been stigmatised and may distrust our health systems and our decision makers.
I think a big one as well is being vulnerable and actually sharing when you don't know the full story about something. I know we struggle sometimes with that because we want to have the answers to these really complex questions, and quite often the answers are very nuanced, and then sometimes you might think, oh well, I can't share the nuance because then it's not believable. But I think with trusting in each other also comes this openness to someone else's vulnerability, and the fact that you did your work, and even then the answers are not black and white.
Talking about how, okay, if someone tells you something is good for you or bad for you, just ask yourself the question, how do I know that's real?
Misinformation is something that does happen. So what we do is that we try to consistently provide them reliable information through trusted sources. As I illustrate again the example of COVID, we have been providing them consistent information from WHO or Government of India, which are already trustworthy sources. So evidence from trustworthy sources, they do get attracted to it. And when it is communicated through their own local people, if we involve their local community people, local leaders, local health professionals, respected people from their community, it legitimizes the information.
When we're talking about misinformation, sometimes it can be a bit alienating, and it also maybe misses other information problems, or is being used too broadly to refer to like a whole range of information problems in a way that causes communication breakdowns.
As far as credibility goes, I think that in order for me to build credibility with the children that I've worked with, it's again to listen to them and to then explain my point of view, because they're interested if I can speak to them in a trustworthy manner and be clear and be transparent in who I am.
I do think that there's value in tailored information communication, but that's not always possible, right? Like when we're trying to talk to a wide group of people about what they should do, we don't know every individual person's circumstances or the contexts of their lives in a way that then we can tailor that information. But I really do think that piece around nuance is really important, that we of course we have a goal when we're communicating about evidence. We want to convince people to act in a certain way to come to a certain conclusion, but I think people really respond well to balance and to acknowledgements of areas where there is, particularly if there's evidentiary uncertainty, so things that we don't know, that's acknowledged, because I think that when it isn't acknowledged, people pick up on that inauthenticity.
I think a lot of the things that we also come across in Belgian Red Cross is, for instance, misinformation about first aid for very common things like burns, for instance. People think they can put toothpaste on a burn and it will help it heal. So that's certainly something we come across often. And we try to give the information that is out there. Of course, we have to have the evidence to make sure that we give the right alternatives for an effective first aid treatment. So we don't always have it because sometimes there's just no evidence on putting toothpaste on a burn, but we try to inform people on what works or what is proven to work. So that's what we're doing.
There's a shift from what we used to call patient public involvement and engagement to being more referred to by some groups as public partnerships, and developing that partnership with the public. So not just relying on people like me as the patient. I think we've been a good place to start, right? But we now must move far more. There was an article recently about, which you can reference, I'm going to get this wrong. It was something like, how do we make the treetops talk more to the grassroots, right? So that idea of a lot of it being grassroots stuff, but actually, how do we help the treetops make that link?
Então, muitas vezes, alguns temas muito importantes que o governo faz um trabalho de comunicação já muito bom, a gente às vezes nem dá tanta atenção porque esse trabalho já está sendo feito. E também para não confundir, para que a gente não seja... muita gente pode pensar que nós somos do governo, nada contra, mas nós não somos do governo. Nós queremos mostrar, assim, que o cidadão, como nós somos, e qualquer cidadão, ele pode orientar, ele pode informar com responsabilidade, ele pode criticar, ele pode se manifestar. Não só pode, como deve, né?